I'm going to show you a very simple demonstration of how to configure an import job for Sigma Pictures. Users with sufficient access have an administration tab. In here the configurations are managed. I'm going to create a new one. The first thing it asks me is what is the default directory that the user should be directed to. Leaving this blank will send it to their Pictures folder. This is an appropriate setting for most users for most jobs. You may want to create special jobs that point to a particular network share. Next, I decide what kind of images are acceptable to be used in the import. By ticking all of these, I allow the user to select a larger range of images. Delete after cataloging is very useful if you're using pictures to migrate content from one place to another. Making the delete option mandatory ensures that nothing is left behind. You might want to leave this unchecked, at least initially, while your users get used to the process. Allow repeat cataloging, usually uncheck this. You can also choose the default way that images are going to be previewed for the user. I find thumbnails to be the most useful. Now you must have a look at the image pre-processing functions. There are 9 of these. You can apply image rotation, you can burn text into the image, you can modify the format, for example from PNG to JPEG or to TIFF and so on. You can constrain the size. You can use auto rotation. You can build a frame border into the image. You can compress the image. You can modify the dot pitch. You can also generate a large thumbnail rendition. All of these modify the original image. Use these with caution. You must consider whether it is appropriate to modify the original image. I'm going to choose the auto rotation simply because I want images that contain metadata that explains which way the camera was held to be rewritten the right way to save future difficulties for users. Now comes the more detailed part of the process. Here I must set up the mapping of data from the image and from the image's current environment to the resultant record and folder structure that I want this image and collection of images to reside in. The first thing I must choose is what type of record I want to use for my images. Next, I select what will happen if the same image is imported more than one time. You can see there is an extensive list of record attributes to choose from. It's unlikely that you will set all of these. One of the important attributes that you will always want to look at is container. When I click on the plus next to the field, a metadata source dialog is displayed. This dialog uses some intelligence and displays only the types of data that are relevant to the field that I'm choosing. In this example, I've chosen container. Container is a HP EDRMS specific attribute, so I'm only getting attributes listed under the old name of the product, which is trim. In this case, I want the user to be free to choose what folder this collection is going to go to, so I'm going to choose prompt in the wizard. I want the user to have to choose a folder, so I'm going to make it mandatory. I'm going to give them the ability to have the browse button. I'm not going to give them the ability to create folders on the fly. I'd like the images imported to be recorded with their original date. Clicking on the plus brings up the metadata source, and as you can see, I have more choices. Finally, I want to make sure that the title of my image is set. There are several different ways that you can approach this. For ordinary import jobs that are used occasionally by users, it would make sense to prompt the user to type in something about the batch they're importing. If I'm importing a large historical collection of images that have some attributes in their file names and file paths that would be useful, I might want to automate the titling. In this case, I'm going to use the existing file name. I have an option here to choose file name without the extension. Sounds good. Among the selection of metadata fields I can choose from are user-defined fields. You might have special requirements. In this case, we're keen to see any GPS data that can be extracted from the image used in the metadata. I'm going to map the GPS latitude to the EXIF value for the decimal GPS latitude. I'm also going to map the longitude. Finally, I get to see what the user is going to see when they run the import job. The user using this job will have one question, which is what folder, what container do you want to put these into? When I'm finished, I'm prompted to save this as a new record inside the dataset. Give your import job a meaningful title that explains what it is used for. And finally, choose a container to save your configuration in. My import job is now ready to use. Ordinary users who have access to use import jobs can now see and use this job that we have created. That was a short presentation on how to configure import jobs for Sigma Pictures. For more information about Sigma Pictures or our other products, please visit our website infoproficiency.com.au.